Sometimes the past turns out to be not what we were taught in school. Behind the apparent clarity of chronological tables and dates lies something more. Mysteries that even the most cautious minds hesitate to dismiss. Because if you look closely at the intersection of science and speculation, a chillingly fascinating picture emerges. Maybe we are not the first. What if traces of other civilizations have already been found but were misunderstood? What if evidence erased by time is hidden right beneath our feet, in layers we have yet to fully decipher? Some discoveries are too complex to explain within the confines of conventional history. But instead of acknowledging this, we often shove them into the realms of myths, legends, or simply ignore them. There are questions that remain unanswered, but there are facts we cannot turn away from. And if you're ready to see human history from a different perspective, prepare for an intriguing and somewhat unsettling journey. Subscribe and like. The best is yet to come. Civilization is not merely the presence of cities, roads, and digital technologies. Its essence is revealed through a set of characteristics by which archaeologists distinguish a complex society from a primitive one. Among these are urbanization, writing, social hierarchy, economy, religion, and scientific and technological progress. These elements shape not the external appearance, but the very fabric of cultural development. Urbanization reflects the growing role of cities as centers of culture, governance, and exchange. Cities generate patterns of high culture that are then transmitted beyond their borders. Writing is a means of transmitting knowledge beyond time and space, allowing speech, ideas, history, and laws to be recorded. Unlike drawings or symbols, it is tied to a specific language and preserves expressions lost in spoken language. Social hierarchy organizes society by levels of power, property, and prestige, forming a multi-tiered structure where everyone knows their place. The economy becomes the foundation of material life, regulating the production and distribution of resources. Religion unites people into a shared spiritual space, shaping values, rituals, and moral norms based on belief in higher powers. Scientific and technological progress is an indispensable driving force of civilization, constantly transforming methods of production, communication, and understanding of the world. All these together are not random traits, but systemic features by which one can confidently distinguish a true civilization from a mere collection of settlements. What do we really know about tens of thousands of years of human history before the emergence of the first cities? Could civilizations have vanished somewhere in these forgotten epochs without leaving a trace? The history of humanity is but a brief episode against the grand chronicle of Earth. Modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, appeared about 300,000 years ago, yet the first civilized societies arose only 12,000 years ago, and not immediately. This is just a blink of an eye considering that the age of the planet itself is around 4.5 billion years. In its early existence, Earth was molten and unstable. Lava covered the surface, meteorites relentlessly pounded the skies, and oceans were only just forming. The earliest stages of its history are recalled only by the oldest minerals, zircons, which are up to 4.4 billion years old. Against this backdrop, civilization is a relatively recent achievement. Its roots trace back to the time when Earth was recovering from the last ice age. People, still primarily living as nomads, began to notice that their familiar environment was disappearing. Animals were leaving, plants were withering. Following sources of water, they descended into river valleys, where their way of life changed. Here, nomadism became unprofitable, and people began to cultivate food. At first by loosening the soil with sharp sticks, then by using a plow pulled by oxen. Thus, agriculture emerged, not as a forced measure, but as a step toward sustainable abundance. This transition forever altered the course of history, Sedentary life and stable food production allowed a small number of people to feed the entire society. The rest no longer needed to hunt or gather. They began to engage in crafts, construction, metallurgy, all that became the foundation of civilization. However, with increased prosperity came heightened competition. People began to divide resources, land, and influence. The first distinctions in status, wealth, and power appeared. From these differences began the complex history of society, a history we know, but one that covers only a tiny fraction of the planet's life. If industrial civilization had existed millions of years ago, would we even be able to recognize its traces in the geological record? Is it possible that we have already seen artifacts of a past civilization but mistaken them for natural formations or geological anomalies? We tend to consider ourselves the first and only technologically advanced civilization on Earth. However, in 2017, astrophysicist Adam Frank and NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies director Gavin Schmidt posed an unusual and provocative question. Could it be possible that an industrial civilization existed before us? And if so, did it leave a trace in the geological record? This gave rise to the Silurian Hypothesis, a thought experiment that does not claim such a civilization actually existed, but proposes a scientific way to assess whether we would be able to detect it. Given that only a small portion of Earth's surface dates back to periods before the Quaternary, and that fossils and artifacts are extremely rare, the researchers concluded that direct evidence, such as buildings or machines, almost certainly would not have been preserved. Instead, they suggested searching for indirect signs, such as chemical anomalies in sedimentary layers, changes in isotopic ratios, traces of nuclear waste, or unnatural compounds like microscopic remnants of plastic. Uranium-235, whose nuclear fuel can persist for millions of years, may prove especially durable. Interestingly, the hypothesis extends beyond our planet. If an ancient civilization ventured into space, its traces would be easier to find on the Moon or Mars, where there is no tectonic activity or atmosphere to erode evidence over time. Initially, Frank involved Schmidt in seeking ways to detect alien civilizations through their potential impact on climate. They then realized the hypothesis could be expanded and applied to the search for traces of vanished civilizations on Earth itself. What secrets do the unique artifacts found in various corners of the planet hold? And why does their level of development not fit into the conventional timeline of history? Humanity has left behind numerous traces, but some discoveries from the past are so unusual and out of the ordinary historical narrative that they challenge our understanding of civilization's development. One such discovery is the Göbekli Tepe complex in southeastern Turkey, near the city of Şanlıurfa, one of the oldest settlements in the world. This site, actively inhabited from approximately 9,500 to 8,000 BCE, belongs to the pre-ceramic Neolithic era. Göbekli Tepe astonished archaeologists with its massive T-shaped megaliths decorated with images of animals and abstract symbols, making it the earliest known megalithic structure. Most surprisingly, the construction of these monuments began before the advent of agriculture. It was initially believed to be a temple of nomads, but later excavations revealed traces of grain processing, water supply, and infrastructure typical of a permanent settlement. Equally enigmatic is the Antikythera mechanism, recovered in 1901 from a sunken ancient ship. Its remains and cargo were discovered by a Greek diver on April 4, 1900, near the Greek island of Antikythera. This device, dated to the late 2nd century BCE, was an astronomical calculator capable of computing lunar phases and solar lunar cycles using a complex system of gears. Its technical sophistication was over 1,000 years ahead of its time and remains a subject of active research. The Nazca lines in Peru, created by the Paracas and Nazca cultures between 800 BCE and 600 CE, are geoglyphs depicting animals, humans, and geometric patterns visible only from the air. Their purpose remains unknown, though hypotheses have suggested astronomical calendars, fertility rituals, or sacred pathways. They still provoke many theories due to their vast area, about 500 square kilometers, and precision of execution. Another anomaly is the findings at Lao Gundo, on the banks of the Yangtze River in China. These are among the oldest underwater discoveries, dated between 7,000 and 5,000 BCE. Among them are wooden boats, fishing nets, bits, and images of fish. These artifacts indicate a developed river culture and maritime activity during the Neolithic period, which was previously considered unlikely. These examples are not evidence of a lost advanced civilization, but they pose questions to science for which there are no definitive answers yet. Can legends and myths, such as the story of Atlantis or the ancient astronauts, be considered part of cultural heritage despite their lack of proof? The story of Atlantis and the ancient paleo-contact hypothesis are among the most well-known examples of pseudoscientific influence on the perception of the ancient world. Despite the lack of direct archaeological evidence, these theories continue to inspire the public, creating an alternative picture of the past that is far removed from scientific reality. One of the earliest sources of the Atlantis myth was the philosopher Plato, who about 2,300 years ago described in his works a powerful island state swallowed by the ocean in a single night. According to his account, Atlantis was a utopia inhabited by a noble people with vast resources and technologies. However, the abuse of power led to a catastrophe orchestrated by the gods. Many researchers consider this merely a philosophical allegory about moral decline, while others seek real historical parallels in it, such as the destruction of the island of Thera following a volcanic eruption. Attempts to find the sunken continent continue to this day, although no reliable discoveries have been made. Alongside this myth exists another pseudoscientific theory, the ancient astronaut or paleo-contact hypothesis. Its proponents claim that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in prehistoric times, contributing to the development of civilizations and even creating humanity. They argue that the ancient gods mentioned in myths and religions were aliens whose technologies people mistook for magic. To support their viewpoint, they refer to out-of-place artifacts, objects supposedly incompatible with the official scientific worldview. These include megalithic structures, pyramids, the Nazca geoglyphs, the Moai statues, as well as iconography interpreted as depicting astronauts and flying machines. A key popularizer of these ideas was Erich von Däniken. In his book Chariots of the Gods, he proposed the thesis that all elements of culture, science, and art were brought to Earth by extraterrestrials. He denies humanity's ability for independent cultural development, asserting that ancient people were taught by aliens rather than developing skills on their own. The influence of these pseudoscientific ideas has deeply penetrated popular culture. Books, films, and cartoons dedicated to Atlantis and alien contacts create a mythologized image of the past that is sometimes perceived as historical fact. Despite the lack of scientific confirmation, such narratives continue to live in people's imagination, complicating an objective understanding of ancient history and archaeology. Science is not merely a collection of knowledge accumulated by humanity. Above all, it is a method of understanding the world based on observation, experimentation, hypothesis testing, and logical analysis. Unlike myths or pseudoscientific theories, science does not aim to enchant. It aims to comprehend. Its strength lies in verifiability and repeatability, in the ability to question even the most deeply rooted ideas. Archaeologists, geologists, historians, and volcanologists examine real catastrophes of the past to explain which events may have inspired myths. Science is not dry mathematics and tables. It is a living, constantly evolving system. Yesterday, we did not know about the existence of gravitational waves. Today, we detect them. Yesterday, space seemed empty. Today, we speak of billions of exoplanets. Yesterday, DNA was a mystery. Today, we edit genes. It is important to understand, the scientific method does not exclude the unknown. It simply requires approaching it with critical thinking, not with belief in sensationalism. Want to join us on the path of knowledge and discovery? Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. Many more amazing scientific stories await you.